Near Petersburg, Virginia, June 20th, 1864. Last night at 9 o'clock, our brigade was relieved from the front line, where we had been under fire for 36 hours, and ordered to the rear a short distance for a rest. About midnight, I got the regiment into camp and then had a good sleep under a peach tree. This morning, the rebels began to shell my camp from batteries on the other side of the Appomattox River and made it so warm for us that I was obliged to move the regiment to the shelter of a hill. Some of the shots came from heavy guns and would strike the ground and ricochet for a long distance. One shot struck a barn nearby and made the splinters fly. The 10th Massachusetts Volunteers go home today, their 3 years having expired. This leaves only the 2nd Rhode Island Veterans and the 37th Massachusetts Regiment left of the old brigade. Yesterday, Sergeant Major George F. Polly of the 10th Massachusetts Volunteers showed me a board on which he had carved his name, date of birth, and had left a place for the date of his death. He had re-enlisted and was expecting a commission as lieutenant in the 37th Massachusetts Volunteers. I asked him if he expected to be killed, and he said no, that he had made his headboard only for fun. Today he was killed by a shell fired from a rebel battery. Petersburg must be a warm place to live in just now, judging from the amount of iron we have thrown into it. Last night our mortars opened upon the city, and we watched the shells as they rose in the air and fell into the rebel forts. I am often asked the question, "Are you not sorry that you agreed to remain in the service?" I answer, no. I want to see the end of the war. June 22nd, 1864. The 2nd Rhode Island has not been engaged today, as we are at work building rifle pits and guarding the Jerusalem Plank Road on the left flank of the army. Yesterday, President Lincoln paid us a visit. I did not see him as I was at the front. June 23rd, 1864. Last night, just as we finished our rifle pits, we were ordered to move, and my regiment is now supporting Battery G, 5th United States Artillery, on the Jerusalem Plank Road. The 6th Corps has been fighting all day, but we have had very little firing on our part of the line, only skirmishing. Lieutenant Smith has been sent north, and the surgeons have hopes that he may recover. June 25th, 1864. Still in our rifle pits, covered with dust and watching the enemy. A new move is to be made, but of course we do not know the particulars. We shall find out soon enough. I hear that our late chaplain, John D. Buglas, is to go into the United States Navy. I am glad for him, for he is a brave man and a good soldier. June 26th, 1864. Hurrah! My commission as captain in the 2nd Rhode Island Volunteers has arrived, and I was this day mustered into the United States service. Direct Captain E. H. Rhodes, commanding 2nd Rhode Island Volunteers, 4th Brigade, 2nd Division, 6th Corps. June 27th, 1864. We are now having an easy time on our line. Nothing to do but watch the rebels. Fighting is going on every hour on some part of the line, and our turn will come again soon enough. Yesterday, some of my men discovered an ice house full of ice, and we have been having a luxury in the way of iced water. Yesterday, being Sunday, I attended service at the camp of the 37th Massachusetts Volunteers. June 28th, 1864, Governor James Y. Smith of Rhode Island has written me a very kind and complimentary letter, which cheers me very much. I called today on General Wheaton and met General Wright, General Russell, and others. Last night I called on Captain William B. Rhodes of Battery E, Rhode Island Artillery. We have found a supply of lemons and have iced lemonade in abundance. Yesterday I saw my valise long enough to get out a change of underclothing. The weather is very hot. June 29th, 1864. This is the first letter that I have written with ink for nearly 2 months. This morning my headquarters wagon came up, and I had my tent pitched But just as I commenced writing came the order, "Captain, have your regiment ready to move at a moment's notice. The tent will have to come down, and we shall be off to a new point. I suppose, having had a rest, we will have to take our turn at siege work. Last night the air was full of shells, and the roar of the cannon was not calculated to make us sleep soundly." July 1st, 1864. Before I could finish my letter of the 29th in ink, our corps moved, and I will finish it in pencil. The 6th Corps marched to Reams Station, and while a part built rifle pits, the other tore up the railroad track. I made my headquarters in a house near the railroad and procured some vegetables and ice, which helped our army rations very much. After destroying the road, we returned to the lines, and the 2nd Rhode Island is now supporting Battery E, Rhode Island Artillery, and are ready for a fight. July 2nd, 1864, we are back in the lines again, and I have an arbor of green boughs to shield me from the sun. The thermometer stands today at 124 degrees, and the men are suffering severely. During our recent raid, the 6th Corps caused great destruction, but it's the penalty that Virginia must pay for treason. When we reached Reams Station, we found quite a village, with a good depot, fair dwellings, workshops, and well-cultivated gardens and fields fenced in. When we left, nothing remained but smoking ruins, trampled fields, and a railroad useless for some days. July 4th, 1864. The glorious 4th has come again, and we have had quite a celebration with guns firing shot and shell into Petersburg to remind them of the day. This day makes 4 4th of Julys that I have passed in the Army, the first at Camp Clark near Washington, the second at Harrison's Landing, the third at Gettysburg, and today at Petersburg. I had a party of officers to dine with me today, and we gave what seemed to me, by way of contrast, a fine dinner. This was our bill of fare: stewed oysters, canned; roast turkey, canned; bread pudding, tapioca pudding, apple pie made in camp, lemonade, cigars. Tomorrow, if we march, hardtack and salt pork will be our fare. The siege goes on, and tons of iron are poured into the city. Rebel prisoners say we can never take the city, but we think differently. Our heavy guns are doing much damage, and we hope to see the end. A good story is told about President Lincoln, which may be true or false. The president, unattended, walked up to Major General Wright's headquarters and was stopped by the guard, who said, "We do not allow citizens to pass, especially you sanitary fellows." The president sent in the word that Mr. Lincoln would like to see General Wright, and was admitted. Last night, I attended church service at the camp of the 37th Massachusetts Volunteers. July 6, 1864, the 4th Brigade, 2nd Division, 6th Corps has been broken up, and the 2nd Rhode Island and 37th Massachusetts Volunteers have been transferred to the 3rd Brigade, 1st Division, 6th Corps. The brigade will be commanded by Colonel Oliver Edwards, 37th Massachusetts Volunteers, and the division by General David A. Russell, formerly Colonel of the 7th Massachusetts Volunteers. The regiments in the brigade are as follows: 37th Massachusetts, 2nd Rhode Island, 49th Pennsylvania, 82nd Pennsylvania, 119th Pennsylvania, and 5th Wisconsin Volunteers. We now wear a red cross upon our caps and hats. The Greek cross is the badge of the 6th Corps. The 1st Division wears red, the 2nd white, and the 3rd blue. Yesterday I had charge of a large detail and built a heavy fort across the Jerusalem Plank Road. This work will be mounted with heavy guns. Note, this work was afterwards called Fort Davis. We expect to move soon and join our new division. The weather is hot, and the men are allowed to wear straw hats when they can get them, but the regulation cap is used on parade. I am wearing a large soft white felt hat, which I received by mail. It is not very military, but is very comfortable. The army presents a rather motley appearance now, as little regard is paid to dress, and all are dirty and ragged. Still, I am happy, and probably the best contented man in the Army of the Potomac. July 8th, 1864. Yesterday, we moved our camp and joined the 1st Division. We are now in rear of the main line, and my camp is in a fine oak grove. We enjoy the shade very much. It is a little lonely, for we have little to do. Our batteries at the front keep up a constant fire, but we are too far away to see the result. We have been mustered for pay, which we hope will come soon, for not an officer has any money. General Grant has issued an order for the companies to issue rations to the officers, the same as to the enlisted men, and the value of the rations will be charged to us on our payrolls. But for this, we should starve. The 4th Rhode Island Volunteers has joined the Army of the Potomac and are in the 9th Corps. We have just heard of the destruction of the rebel steamer Alabama by the Yankee Kearsarge. Hurrah! On board U.S. Transport Peril, James River, July 11th, 1864. Will wonders cease? Saturday night, the 9th, we left camp with the 6th Corps at 11 o'clock and marched to City Point. Here we remained until dark on Sunday the 10th, when the 2nd Rhode Island and 37th Massachusetts Volunteers embarked on the steamer Peril and started down the James River. Our steamer is a fine large propeller, and in conversation with the captain, I found that he used to be acquainted with my father. The men are rather crowded, but the officers have fine staterooms in the saloon, and we are more than enjoying ourselves. It is very early in the morning, but altogether too pleasant to sleep. 6 a.m. We are now 50 miles from City Point. We had to anchor 2 hours during the night for some reason. The riverbanks are very beautiful, and we are enjoying the scenery. Many vessels loaded with troops and batteries are sailing with us. I suppose we are bound for Maryland, where Early's rebel army is making a raid. Well, this suits me, for I shall prefer Maryland to Virginia. Many of the officers, like myself, are busy writing letters to be mailed when we reach Washington. 8 a.m. We are just passing Fortress Monroe, and the scene is a grand one. Hampton Roads is full of shipping, including war vessels. I was interested in seeing a 3-turreted monitor called the Roanoke. She looks as if she could do good service. One large French man-of-war is anchored near the fort, and as we passed, her yards were manned by sailors in white uniforms, and at the firing of a gun, all the sails were set. I never saw a more beautiful sight. After passing Fortress Monroe, the officers were invited to take breakfast. 2 p.m. We have just dined, and notwithstanding the style displayed, we have enjoyed a good dinner. Our ship rolls a good deal in Chesapeake Bay, and some of the officers look very pale, but I, being something of an old salt, rather enjoy it. The transport Rebecca Clyde came alongside of our ship, and our brigade band gave them some music, which was returned by the band of the 2nd Connecticut. 4 p.m. We have had a very heavy shower, but it is now pleasant again. We are just entering the mouth of the Potomac River. The scenery is fine. 6 p.m. Supper is over, and we are telling stories and smoking. 9 p.m. This has been a delightful day. Life on a transport is certainly very pleasant, and I wish we could prolong it for a month. I shall have a good sleep tonight without any cannon accompaniment, which we have had for more than 2 months past. We shall arrive in Washington sometime tomorrow. Steamer Peril, Potomac River, July 12th, 1864. 4 a.m. I am up early this morning, for it is altogether too pleasant to sleep. The steamer anchored again last night and has just started. 6 a.m. The river begins to narrow, and the banks can be more plainly seen. We are now near Aquia Creek and 60 miles from Washington. Then for the old life again, dust and heat. 10 a.m. We are passing Mount Vernon, and our band is playing a dirge in memory of the father of his country. Fort Washington is in sight, and a party of ladies are waving a United States flag. Our band played the Star-Spangled Banner. The capital is in sight, and soon we shall go on shore and learn the news. 12 M. Here we are at the 6th Street Wharf in Washington, and we can hear musketry which does not sound far off. We do not know what it means. Brightwood, near Washington, D.C., July the 12th, 1864. Well, this has been a queer day. We landed from the steamer at noon. As I stepped upon the wharf and heard the firing in the distance, I supposed that it was troops drilling. An officer approached me and said, "Who commands these troops?" I replied, "I command one regiment." He then said, "Have your men form, and I will send a guide to show you the way to Brightwood, and do not wait for your horses." I told him that I knew the way and did not require a guide. While the men were disembarking, the staff officer informed me that the rebel General Early was near Brightwood, and an attack was expected immediately. I marched up 6th Street and then up Pennsylvania Avenue and followed 16th Street to Brightwood. The people in Washington seemed to be very happy to see us and were much frightened. Many citizens had guns in their hands, and the Treasury clerks were drawn up in front of the Treasury buildings. One young man had on a straw hat, linen duster, kid gloves, well-polished boots, and eyeglasses. He also had a full set of equipment and a musket. Wishing to be polite to me as I passed, he presented arms with the barrel of his musket to the front. Our boys cheered him in great style. Several citizens fell into our ranks with guns in their hands and seemed to be full of fight. The ladies brought water to the men, and some passed to the soldiers packages of tobacco as we marched along. On arriving at Fort Stevens, I formed my regiment in the old camp of the 7th and 10th Massachusetts Volunteers in rear of the fort. In 1861 and early in 1862, our brigade, then composed of the 2nd Rhode Island, 7th and 10th Massachusetts, and 36th the New York Volunteers, was camped at this place. Fort Stevens was then called Fort Massachusetts and was built by the 7th and 10th Massachusetts regiments, while the next fort to the right was called Fort Slocum and was built by the 2nd Rhode Island Volunteers. We did not expect in 1861 that these forts would ever be of service, but now we are glad that we helped to build them. We remained in line until about 6 p.m., when, with a picked force, the 2nd Rhode Island and 37th Massachusetts went to the front. Fort Stevens was firing shell into the rebel lines, while Fort Slocum was sending its shots with fearful screams after Early's men. Our column passed through the gate of Fort Stevens, and on the parapet I saw President Lincoln standing, looking at the troops. Mrs. Lincoln and other ladies were sitting in a carriage behind the earthworks. We marched in line of battle into a peach orchard in front of Fort Stevens, and here the fight began. For a short time it was warm work, but as the President and many ladies were looking at us, every man tried to do his best. Just at dark, I was ordered to take my regiment to the right of the line, which I did at a double quick. I never saw the 2nd Rhode Island behave better. An old gentleman, a citizen in a black silk hat with a gun in his hand, went with us and, taking position behind a stump, fired as cool as a veteran. The rebels, at first supposing us to be Pennsylvania militia, stood their ground, but prisoners told me that when they saw our lines advance without a break, they knew we were veterans. The Greek cross of our corps told the story, and the rebels broke and fled. I lost 3 men wounded. It was a fine little fight, but did not last long. A surgeon standing on the fort beside President Lincoln was wounded. We slept upon the field, glad that we had saved Washington from capture, for without our help, the small force in the forts would have been overpowered. Early should have attacked early in the morning. Early was late. July 13th, 1864, Tenallytown, Maryland. The rebels retired last night, and this morning we followed to this place where we are in camp. Orcutt's Crossroads, Maryland, July 14th, 1864. We moved to this place today and are now waiting for orders. Poolesville, Maryland, July 15th, 1864. We reached this place today and find that the rebels are all across the Potomac River and on their own soil in Virginia. I have just returned from a ride through the village and have enjoyed the kindly greetings of the people very much. It is not like Virginia at all. The people are all glad to see us. The country is charming and is in marked contrast with that of Virginia. As we entered the village of Poolesville this morning, a staff officer told me to turn right on reaching the common and march across it. We did so, and much to our surprise and horror, we saw a man dangling by the neck at the end of a rope attached to a scaffold. He proved to be a soldier named Himes, who belonged to the 65th New York Volunteers, who had been acting as a spy for the rebels. Being detected, he was tried by a court-martial, promptly found guilty, sentenced to die, and hung. He had on part of a uniform and was a miserable-looking fellow. I understand that he had made several visits to the enemy before he was captured. July 16th, 1864. This morning we marched to White's Ferry on the Potomac. A regiment of rebel cavalry fired at us with carbines from the Virginia shore as soon as we came in sight. Battery C, 1st Rhode Island Artillery, went into position and soon, with their shells, sent the rebels flying behind the hills. It was fun for us to see them urge their horses into a run to escape the shells. Our division then forded the stream and again landed in Dixie. The river was wide at this point and about 3 feet deep, and we were very wet when we landed in Virginia. About dark we arrived in the vicinity of Leesburg and encamped for the night. The men were wet and uncomfortable and glad to gather about the fires to dry themselves. Near Leesburg, Virginia, Sunday, July the 17th, 1864. Today we have remained quietly in camp, and I have enjoyed the rest very much. The view of the mountains is very fine. Monday, July 18th, 1864. Today we left Leesburg and crossed the mountains at Clark's Gap, passing through the village of Hamilton. Greatly to our surprise, we were welcomed by the ladies of this village with waving Union flags and handkerchiefs. Such loyal demonstrations in a Virginia town were never seen by the 6th Corps before. We then passed the village of Purcellville, an unimportant place. We found in the road many broken down and burned wagons which the rebels had abandoned in their retreat when hard pressed by our cavalry. Just before dark we arrived at Snicker's Gap in the Blue Ridge Mountains and commenced the ascent. The grand view from the summit repaid us for our hard work. On one side we could see the valley of the Potomac with the blue hills of Maryland in the distance, while on the other side the fertile valley of the Shenandoah stretched out like a map as far as the eye could reach. The Shenandoah River rippled and glistened in the setting sunlight at our feet. Soon the booming of cannon and the sharp rattle of musketry warned us that our old enemy was near. Hurrying down the slope, we found that a part of General Hunter's army had crossed the river and had been driven back, losing many men. A rebel battery discovered us and opened fire, but fortunately did no injury to our brigade, though several were killed and wounded in our 3rd Division. Batteries C and G, 1st Rhode Island Artillery, soon made it so uncomfortable for the rebels that they ceased firing. As soon as it became dark, the 2nd Rhode Island was sent out to picket the bank of the river. I have 40 of my men armed with Spencer, repeating rifles that will hold 7 cartridges at one loading. I borrowed these guns from the 37th Massachusetts, who are armed with them and have used them for some time. We marched silently down to the river, and I posted 10 men under cover within 40 yards of the enemy before they discovered us. When they found our position, it was too late for them to drive us away. The balance of my regiment I held in reserve. We could hear the rebels talking and speculating upon the chances of being driven back by the Yankees at daylight. Tuesday, July 19th, 1864. We passed a very uncomfortable night with very little sleep. At daylight this morning, 4 wounded soldiers who had remained on the rebel side of the river all night attempted to cross to our lines. A rebel officer ordered his men to fire upon them, which they did, but the men reached us in safety. I had forbidden my men to fire when on picket, as it is murderous business, but when I heard this officer order his men to shoot wounded men, I ordered my line to open fire, which they did with much spirit. The rebels, supposing we had the muzzle-loading muskets, would leave their shelter as soon as we fired and shout some insulting message, but they soon found that the fire was kept up. My 40 men doing the work of perhaps 5 times as many. One rebel called out, "I say, Yankees, what kind of guns have you got?" Our only reply was another volley. All day we kept up our fire, but as the second was behind banks of earth, no damage was done to us. We saw the rebels carry off 7 wounded men. In order to get to the river for water to drink, the enemy would sometimes expose themselves when they would pay the penalty by a wound. I made the acquaintance of a Union family nearby and took tea with them. The lady was very kind to our wounded and even carries water to them on the field. Her house was struck several times by shot and bullets, but she was as cool as an old soldier. Wednesday, July 20th, 1864. This morning, the 2nd Rhode Island and the 37th Massachusetts were ordered to cross the river. We dashed into the stream and gained the opposite bank, to find that it was an island. We took to the water again and soon landed on the rebel side. The enemy retreated. I found some good chickens, however, at a house nearby. We marched to the village of Berryville, where we remained until dark and then started back toward Washington. Thursday, July 21st, 1864. We reached Leesburg today after a march of 30 miles without sleep. Leesburg is a very pretty town. We passed through and camped at a place called Goose Creek. Soon after passing Leesburg, Mosby's rebel cavalry attacked our trains and captured a number of sick and wounded men. 5 of these captured belonged to my regiment. Friday, July 22nd, 1864. Today we marched to this place, which is called Difficult Creek, and shall remain overnight. Tenallytown, D.C., July 23rd, 1864. This morning we crossed Chain Bridge and are once more in the District of Columbia. We are under orders to move, and I expect we shall take transports back to Petersburg. Our campaign has been brief but successful. Near Washington, D.C., July 24th, 1864. Today I received a first lieutenant's commission for Second Lieutenant Thorndike J. Smith and second lieutenant's commissions for Sergeant George T. Easterbrooks and Sergeant Charles W. Gleason. This will give me 4 officers. Governor James Y. Smith wrote me that he wanted me to do all in my power to retain our regimental organization. I have no doubt now but that we shall soon have a full regiment. We may remain here for a few days as we need supplies, and then we shall probably return to Petersburg. Some of my men need shoes and suffered much during our late march. The 5 men captured by Mosby from the 2nd Rhode Island have made their escape and are now in camp again. Our camp is near Fort Reno and Fort Gaines on the Maryland side of the river. Our camps are filled with visitors, ladies and gentlemen who seem to take great delight in talking to the veterans of the 6th Corps. Tuesday, July 26th, 1864. We left camp about noon and marched through Rockville to this camp, which is about 5 miles beyond the village. The rebel General Early is again moving upon Maryland, and instead of going back to Petersburg, we are to try another campaign in this state. Yesterday, I rode into Washington and enjoyed a good dinner at a hotel. It was quite a treat to meet my friends there. We have marched 20 miles today, and the heat has been intense. Near Hyattsville, Maryland, July 27th, 1864. Today we march to this village, which is 12 miles from Frederick City, where it is said we are bound. We are near Sugarloaf Mountain, and the scenery is very fine. Jefferson, Maryland, July 28, 1864. Today we march through Frederick City, a fine large town, and are resting for the night at or near Jefferson. July 29, 1864, Paultown, Virginia. We left Jefferson this morning and marched to Harper's Ferry, where we crossed the Potomac on a pontoon bridge and are now in camp 4 miles beyond. Harper's Ferry is delightfully situated in the mountains, and the scenery is very picturesque. All of the government buildings are in ruins, having been burned by the United States troops in 1861 to prevent them from falling into the hands of the rebels. Paultown is a small village and not of much account. We are now at the opening of the Shenandoah Valley, and the Shenandoah River is not far away. Petersville, Maryland, July 31st, 1864. Yesterday we made a long and hard march into the mountains near Harper's Ferry, Virginia, and then recrossed the Potomac and reached this place at 3 o'clock in the morning. The poor old 6th Corps has been on its feet for a long time, and we are very weary. But it is all for the Union, and I trust we are doing good work that will help the boys we left at Petersburg, Virginia, near Frederick City, Maryland, Monday, August 1st, 1864. Several men were overcome by heat on our march to this place. Yesterday the thermometer marked 130 degrees in the sun. We passed through the town of Jefferson again. As it was Sunday, all the people were out in their good clothes. It must have been a queer Sabbath for them. August 2nd, 1864. We remained in camp today, and I paid a visit to the city and enjoyed it very much. The people were kind, and I was much pleased with the neat appearance of the streets and houses. We shall probably move from here tonight or tomorrow morning. Monocacy River, Maryland, August 4th, 1864. This morning we left Frederick City and marched to this place. My camp is in a wheat field on the bank of the river, and we have enjoyed a good bath. It is cloudy, and we hope for rain to cool the air and lay the dust. The wagon train has arrived, and as we have not seen our baggage in many days, we were glad to get our fresh clothing. We hope to remain in this camp for a few days for rest. General Russell, commanding our division, has said some kind things about me, all of which is pleasant for a soldier to hear. Buckystown is the nearest settlement to our camp, and we send our letters there to be mailed. It is quite a village for this part of the country. Near Monocacy River, Maryland, August 4th, 1864, continued. This morning I received an order from Headquarters 6th Corps, detaching the 2nd Rhode Island from the 37th, recognizing it as a regiment and ordering me to report to Colonel Edwards, commanding our brigade. I reported and received this reply. Captain, if you will handle your regiment in the future, as well as you have in the past, I shall be satisfied. I am much elated over this order, as steps were being taken by certain parties to consolidate the 2nd Rhode Island with some other command. Now we are all right, and as soon as I can get recruits, we shall have a full regiment. August 5th, 1864. Major Ellis, a division staff officer, died yesterday from the effects of wounds received at Spotsylvania. The entire division was under arms and saluted the remains as they were borne past our lines. The President's fast day was generally observed in the Army. We held services at Brigade Headquarters near Harper's Ferry, Virginia, August 7th, 1864. Friday night at 9 o'clock we received orders to march, and as we were waiting for the final orders, I lay down on the ground, holding the bridle of my horse in my hand, and went to sleep. The officers and men did the same. At daylight yesterday, Saturday, I awoke feeling cold and found that it had been raining all night. As I had no blankets or covering of any kind, I was wet and uncomfortable, but a cup of hot coffee warmed me some, and at 9 o'clock in the morning, we started and forded the Monocacy River and passed for the third time within a week through the town of Jefferson. After dark, we halted for supper and then continued on to Sandy Hook on the Potomac River. My regiment was detailed as rear guard and marched some distance in the rear of the main column, picking up the stragglers. We passed under the canal through a culvert and marched upon the towpath of the canal, with the Potomac River on one side and the canal on the other. The towpath was about 8 feet wide, and the marching was not good. About midnight, a staff officer came back and said that if I wished, I could halt until daylight. We tied our horses to the brush and went to sleep. The staff officer could not find the way back to the brigade, and so stayed with me. Harper's Ferry, Virginia, August 7th, 1864, continued. This morning, we started along the towpath and arrived at Harper's Ferry, where we crossed the Potomac on a pontoon bridge. This made 25 times that I have crossed the Potomac since I entered the Army. We are now in camp with our brigade. Major General Philip H. Sheridan has arrived and has taken command of this department. This looks like work before us, with little prospect of going back to Petersburg at present. Near Charlestown, Virginia, Wednesday, August 10th, 1864, we left Harper's Ferry this morning and marched to this camp, passing through Charlestown. This is the place where John Brown was hanged, and we had each band and drum corps play John Brown's body lies moldering in the grave, but his soul goes marching on as we passed through the streets of the town. The men joined in singing the hymn, much to the disgust of the people. I saw at Harper's Ferry the engine house where John Brown was captured, and at Charlestown the spot where his execution took place. Near Uppaquan Creek, Virginia, Thursday, August 11th, 1864. This morning we continued our march and are now in camp for the night. We are not far from the city of Winchester, which I hope to visit, for it is a famous place in the Shenandoah Valley and said to be a fine little city. Several battles have been fought there during the war. Milltown near Winchester, Virginia, Friday, August 12th, 1864. This morning, after starting on our march, our brigade was detached from the division and ordered to Winchester, there to await the arrival of our wagon trains and then escort them to the front. The brigade, with the exception of the 2nd Rhode Island, remained in the city. We were ordered to Milltown, a little village 1 mile south of the city on the Strasburg Pike. On arriving, I formed line on a creek running across the road and posted my pickets. I then arrested some of the citizens who were spying about and sent them under guard to Winchester. There is a large flour mill here owned by a Mr. Hollinsworth, who lives in a fine brick house with pleasant grounds. Mr. Hollinsworth and his wife offered me the use of a room, but I preferred to sleep under the trees. The family were strong Union people, and I have arranged to take my meals with them. I have taken a ride into the city and found many Union people. In fact, we were very much surprised to be treated so kindly. Winchester is an old-fashioned sort of place, inclined to be aristocratic, but its glory departed on the advent of the war. This evening, myself and officers passed the evening with Mr. and Mrs. Hollinsworth, and Mrs. Hollinsworth gave us some good music on the piano. That concludes the 11th part of the story. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe for more episodes and leave a comment.